everyone, and welcome to my manga updates for the second half of August. There's a lot of stuff to get through here, over 60 volumes, so hopefully this won't go too long. In addition to all of that, I also am doing a separate video for all the BL and yaoi, shonenai, whatever you want to call it, titles that I got this month. Mainly because there's so much just regular manga to get through, as well as with the amount I have, I don't want to be spending so much time on that for people who aren't necessarily interested in that whilst watching my videos. So, before I get this intro longer than it needs to be, I'm just going to hop straight in and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. So first of all is a light novel that I got from a large proxy order that I got from the US. So this is why I have so much stuff. Not everything is from that proxy order, but there's some, quite a few things. A lot of my BL titles were also in that large box order, but this light novel is the one and only in English, Kino no Tabi, or Kino's Journey, Book 1 of The Beautiful World. I haven't had a chance to read this yet, but Kino's Journey is one of my favorite anime of all time. This is the only light novel out of the 8 that was published in English before Tokyo Pop went bankrupt. And from what I've heard, it's a fairly good translation. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm glad that I found a copy in such good condition. Next is another light novel, which is also from that large box order, and it is volume 2 of the Fullmetal Alchemist light novels. This is The Abducted Alchemist. As you can see, it has volume 2 on the spine there. I already own volume 1. There were only 5 of the 7 that released in English by Viz before they kind of decided that it wasn't profitable to be releasing light novels in English. And this was many, many years ago, before we have the sort of glut of light novels that we do nowadays. As you can see, it was printed in 2006. So this, again, is over a decade old, or about a decade old. Now for the first of the manga, we have volume 2 of Devil's Line by Ryo Hanada. I gave a lot of praise to this series with the first volume. I can only reiterate that for the second volume. It is fantastic. The story has developed so well, and I really love the characters, their dynamic, and just the plot of the story a lot. I think people initially compared this series to Tokyo Ghoul a lot, and whilst I can see the similarities, it's not the same thing. They do a very different. They go very different directions with sort of a similar element, story-wise, and half or human and monster almost. Societies living in coexistence is not a new thing. We've had those sorts of stories for hundreds of years. But Devil's Line does it very well. I think that all of the characters are quite likable, as well as, again, the plot and how the story is developing is very, very intriguing. I cannot wait till the next volume, because as I said with the first volume, I actually read this online. I wanted to read the first couple chapters before I bought the first volume, just to see if I would enjoy it. And then I ended up reading everything that was available online, which is actually the rest of this second volume. So next volume is all stuff I haven't read, and I cannot wait to get to it because it is just really intriguing, and I'm just really looking forward to reading it. Next is a volume that I got from Right Stuff's Christmas sale last year, but again wasn't shipped out to me until this month because it was in my larger US proxy order, and that is Songs to Make You Smile by Natsuki Takaya. I talked a little bit about this in my midweek manga pickups for last week, or midweek manga wrap up, that I read this. This is a collection of one-shot stories by the author of Fruits Basket, as you can probably tell from the large thing here. A lot of them are focused around music, some on romance, some on family, love. So it is very much like a romantic or love-centered little book, but it's not all romantic love. There is some familial and paternal and all of other different sorts of loves, and it's quite good. I enjoyed it, and if you're a Takuya fan, I would probably recommend it. It's fairly easy to get, even though it is a Tokyo Pop release, and so therefore technically out of print. But yeah, if you're a fan of Fruits Basket and you want to kind of pick up another thing with Takuya's style, but you don't want to really commit to a larger story overall, Songs to Make You Smile definitely will make you smile. It's a very sweet little series, and yeah, quite fun to read. Next is volume 19 of Attack on Titan by Hajime Isayama. This was the special edition that came with the DVD and the alternate cover artwork. I never really have the alternate cover artwork. It's a bit of a waste on me just because I don't ever display it with those. But Attack on Titan, I think everybody knows what this is. If you're reading it or like a fan, I'm sure you're already picking this up. I think it's interesting what the story is trying to do, and I can definitely tell it's wrapping up. I'm hoping that it'll wrap up in the next couple of volumes, because although it's a very well-regarded anime and series in general, and manga and series in general, I just think that it's the sort of story that can't really be dragged on too long, because then it will kind of jump the shark a bit too often. So yeah, Attack on Titan is still enjoyable. There's some definite hints of the ending here, and I'm glad to see it's kind of wrapping up. The latest chapters on Crunchyroll's manga app have been really good, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it wraps up, and hopefully it will soon. Next are two other volumes I got from the box proxy order, and that is volume 13 of Mars, and then Horse with No Name, which is sort of a prequel follow-up to Mars, both by Fuyumi Soryo. I still need to get the last two volumes of this series. I haven't actually started reading it, but I want to get it all before I start reading it. Both these books are pretty beat up, but considering they were ex-library, I can live with it. It doesn't affect the pages inside, just the spine, especially on Horse with No Name, is not exactly fantastic. But considering how hard it is to find Horse with No Name in relatively good condition and for a reasonable price, I'm not too upset about that. I did actually win these in a larger manga lot, which had a bunch of ex-library volumes of like Pastel and Rurouni Kenshin and Inuyasha, but those probably aren't things I'm going to keep. I may donate them to my local op shop or whatever else. They're still readable, but I have no interest in keeping them. These two books were the only reason I bought that lot, and it was like it was like $10 US. So I didn't feel like I was wasting my money in getting the other ones just for these two. But yeah, so I'm 2 volumes away from the complete collection, and hopefully I will get them before the end of the year so I can read it and tell you my thoughts on Mars in general. Next is volume 2 of Higurashi When They Cry eye-opening arc. I got volumes 1, 3, and 4 recently in, I think, in an eBay lot, or eBay lot. This was the only volume of this arc that I needed, and I bought it pretty quickly. It's volume 12 overall of the series, because I really wanted to read this, even though I've seen the anime, so I do know what happens. It's always interesting to compare your memories of the show to what you read in the manga. And each artist really brings their own unique style to the story. This was great. I highly recommend the Higurashi manga. Even if you've seen the anime, the manga is done very, very well, and it gives a little more expansion on some parts of the story that don't really have that large of a focus in, or they just don't have time to focus that much on it in the show. So I definitely say if you're a fan of horror or a fan of Higurashi in general, pick up the manga. It's pretty great. Next is a new Viz manga release, and that is Volume 7 of Gangsta by Kosuke. I had not read any of this, and with the cliffhanger of the last volume, I was really looking forward to it. It was phenomenal. I've now read it. Really, really, really good. The emphasis and kind of focus on Marco makes me very interested in the spin-off series that is also going to be released by Viz later this year. And it's just really, and I find Gangsta a very, very interesting setting with very interesting kind of like underground politics to it. And the way the story's developed so far has really got me excited, and I cannot wait for more. I don't know when we'll get another volume of this because of Kosuke's constant hiatuses and health issues, but hopefully it'll be soon. Really, really big fan of this one. Next are some volumes of a completed series. It's not the entirety of the series, but I do have the missing volumes coming to me in the mail. They just haven't arrived yet. But that is After School Nightmare by Setono Mizushiro. This was released by Go Komi in English quite a few years ago, I think now. This is volume 1. It's sort of it's an interesting series that plays with gender. It's got a main character who is neither male or female, and then kind of romantic interests on both sides vying for their attention, and then they sort of, it's very interesting, and I look forward to it. I do enjoy Mizushiro's story writing, but her art is a bit like hit or miss for me, but it does grow on you after time. This is volume 1. I also have volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, volume 5, volume 6, volume 7, and finally volume 9. So 8 and 10 are the only volumes that I need to still receive. I have bought them and they are on their way to me. But yes, this is a complete series in 10 volumes. I've really enjoyed the way it's I've read the first couple volumes. I really enjoyed how it's sort of very creepy and like you don't really know what's going on, and it asks a lot of questions about like not only gender and the way like we act in our set kind of experiences in society and that sort of thing, but just like the expectations of other people around you when they deal with you. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting series, and I'm glad that I was finally able to pick up the series because I had wanted to get it for a long time. Satono Mizushiro also has a currently ongoing series being released by Viz, and that is Black Rose Alice. I only have the first volume of that one. It's a vampire story with like weird creepy spiders, and it's set like back in 19th century Europe, but also modern day Japan, and it's interesting. I've only got the first volume of that, but there is 6 volumes out currently. I believe it's on hiatus, but the way volume 6 ends, it's a fairly good stopping point anyway, so if she doesn't come back to it, we still have a semi-conclusive ending. But yes, After School Nightmare, I'm looking forward to getting the last 2 volumes and being able to finally read it in its entirety. Although I know some people aren't really that fond of the ending. I think it's, for some series, it's the journey more so than the destination, and I'm hopeful that I'll still enjoy enough of the main story that the ending won't bother me too much. Next is a Yen Press release, and that is the 5th and final omnibus of Emma. This is a fantastic series by Kaoru Mori, her sort of maid epic, shall I say. The cover here is actually of a lot of the side characters. These, both of these volumes are more side stories to the main story, as was the second half of the 4th omnibus. So the last 3 volumes in the single editions are all just side stories. But even so, I really, really love the side characters in this, especially the Count and Countessa. They're very, very interesting characters. Inside we have the flap of that, and we also have that with Squirrel, and inside we have the alternate cover that you can flip around and use instead. Really, really big fan of Mori's artwork. I think this series is really well done. These last 2 volumes, or this last omnibus, is probably, it probably has some of my favorite character interactions of the whole series, even though there are some stories that are focused on unknowns and sort of characters you wouldn't expect at all to have any focus on. I highly recommend Emma. I think A Bride Story is the stronger of her 2 series, but Emma definitely deserves the read, and yes, I give it a high recommendation, and it's complete in the 5 volumes. Just a great series to get into, and yeah, I'm sad that it's over, but I'm glad that I now own it all. Next is another Viz release. This is a bit of a weird one, and it is the signature edition release of Go-Go Monster by Taiyo Matsumoto of Tekkon Kincrete or Black and White fame. This one is an interesting story about 2 elementary schoolers, or well, a group of elementary schoolers, but really one who can kind of see things. He can see things that other people can't. And he's a little bit of a loner, a bit of a weirdo. And then this new boy who is just transferred into his class, who tries to connect with him even though he doesn't fully understand what his friend is seeing. It's a really, really fantastic release. I'm a big fan of Matsumoto's work, Black and White, but I also really want to get into Sunny, which is one of his other series that released by Viz. Yeah, I highly recommend this one. It's a little bit of a weird one. I know that art style may put a lot of people off initially, but in my opinion, it suits the narrative very, very well. And it's not... This is something hard. It's hard to explain because this is the sort of series that I mean when it's difference between style and lack of skill with artwork. There's very definitely a hugely skilled use of style in this series, comparatively to some artists who don't have the best art because they don't have the skills for it. Just to give a example, it's not like the beautiful shots that I know some like Shonen Jump series and other long-running series has, but the way that it's integrated into the story is done extremely well. And like I said, I really recommend this one to pretty much everyone, especially if you're a fan of Matsumoto or you just want something different to read. I know reading the same sort of shonen or shoujo or even seinen over and over and over again, covering the same sorts of themes, can be a little bit repetitive, and I find kind of you lose interest a lot quicker that way. Having an intelligent but whimsical story of elementary schoolers asking questions about becoming an adult and growing up and what it really means to lose your childhood innocence. It's really well done, and like I said, I love this book. I think it's very different from Tekken Kincrete, so if you're not a fan of that, this may be up your alley more so. Although I do enjoy Tekken Kincrete as well. And yes, so I was glad to nab a copy of that. Next are some more hardcover releases. One that I just got today. I have not had the chance to read it, but I will definitely be reading it as soon as this is over. And that is Volume 1 of Otherworld Barbara by Moto Hagio. This is Fantagraphics' most recent release of manga. And I think Hagio's most recent manga that she's done. It's one of her more recent series. If you've seen my videos, you know I'm a big Hagio fan. She is one of the greats and still continues to do some of the most interesting stuff with manga and really testing the boundaries of what shoujo manga can be. At the end, I expect there should be just end notes. Normally there's a little bit of information about Hagio for these, but this is actually a 2-in-1 edition. The story itself is 4 volumes altogether, so there will be 2 of these large hardcover releases, and I cannot wait to crack into it and also get the second one, so I can say that I have another Hagio release because they are just fantastic, and I implore everyone to get some Hagio work to enjoy, because I really think that not only are they phenomenal stories, but they're also a very, very important piece of history for manga and how it's developed and now how it's come to what it is now. In saying that, we have another Hagio work, and that is a Fantagraphics release of The Heart of Thomas. This was one of their first releases of her work. I believe A Drunken Dream and Other Stories was the first, but this one is a continuous story. The collected works, or the collected story of The Heart of Thomas. This is what most people regard as what started BL and yaoi within manga. In saying that, don't be off-put by that. It's not really a story about that. It starts because of the standards of what could be shown in manga and what people were still experimenting with. It's very much very tame to what you would expect from BL today. It's the story of a private boys' school in Germany who, at the beginning of the book, a young boy, like a young teenage boy, throws himself off of a bridge to kill himself after kind of being rejected by the guy who he loves. And it's really a story about this boy who rejected this younger boy's advances and sort of the guilt and self-reflection that he has because of that, as well as also there's a very, very dark themes in here, stuff about family love and whether or not, like, who we truly regard as what we really regard as loving other people. There's a very, very heavy implication of the kind of repercussions of emotional and sexual assault and abuse. It's very, very well done. This is a phenomenal volume. I know I said I was making a separate video for BL, but I don't regard this as the same level as what we get today. Hajio, she doesn't regard herself as being the person to introduce the world to gay romance manga, but most people, I think, do regard her as creating this phenomena. The popularity of the series also really created the interest for literary manga that came after it, and it very interestingly, with all of these books, not all of them, as you saw with Otherworld Barbara, but a lot of these books does have an introduction by Matt Thorne and her giving background on who Hajio was and why her comics are so important. The history behind The Heart of Thomas is amazing and very, very interesting. You really see how in the late 60s and early 70s, shoujo was the most original, and shoujo manga was really the stuff that was experimenting, seeing what boundaries they could push, and creating some of the most interesting and intriguing stories of the time. And The Heart of Thomas is really a product of that movement of the early 70s and seeing what women could write for women. In saying that, definitely pick this up. Fantagraphics has done a phenomenal job with this release, and it deserves its place in everybody's manga collection. It's really a piece of history, and even if you're not a fan of, I don't want to read about gays and get over yourself, it's important to read this because the manga market wouldn't be in the place it is today if not for series like this. And I'm not just talking about the Fujoshi and BL crowd and the ways that that's influenced fandom in recent years. I'm talking about pretty much the entire history of of manga. Moto Hajio and the rest of the Marvelous 49ers are some really influential women, and their work deserves to be read. But yes, Heart of Thomas, as well as Otherworld Barbara, as well as A Drunken Dream and Other Stories, as well as all of her other work, AA Prime and They Were 11, are all stuff that I think people need to read, because if they don't really understand how manga has developed and why it's gotten to the point it has. But I'm going to shut up about this now and go to the next one. But yeah, hopefully I can convince some people to try and read this, even though it might not necessarily be your sort of thing. Finally, for these hardcover I have 2 more hardcover books. The first is Fanfare and Ponentmon's release of Azu in Winter. This, like a lot of their releases, their Taniguchi releases at least, is flipped from right to left to left to right. So you read it like a normal or a Western comic book. This is semi-autobiographical of Jiro Taniguchi's life growing up in the 60s, starting out as an early mangaka. It's not his best work, but I think it's done in a very slow-paced but well thought-out way. It's a very interesting story, and it's very realistic to, I think, a lot of people's experiences of figuring out what they want to do and how they get to that point. Yeah, Azu in Winter, it's not really the easiest thing to come by anymore these days, but if you can find a copy, Ponentmon and Fanfare have done a great job, and Taniguchi's work is always worth the read. the other, the last of these hardcovers is another Taniguchi work, and that is A Distant Neighborhood. I talked about this a little bit, or I talked about it a lot in my midweek manga wrap-up video, and it is a story about a salaryman who kind of ends up in his 14-year-old self in reality and trying to figure out, or really seeing his past life through his older eyes and kind of comparing himself to his father and how he's grown up and how his personal opinions of things have changed or have stayed the same or have mimicked his father. It's very interesting. I do recommend this one. It's a little more engaging than A Zoo in Winter. It's definitely more nostalgic and reflective. And this one is new out, so you can get it pretty much everywhere. I got mine from Book Depository, but I know you can get it from Amazon and all sorts of other things. Yes, so that was the last of the hardcover books. I do also have some other things to show you, so I will go through those quickly, and hopefully I'll get this in under 40 minutes. So first of all, we have the box set released by Viz of Ouran High School Host Club. This is the complete manga series, volume 1 to 18, and I'll actually show you the covers very quickly. We have volume 1, volume 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This was a series I did already own in English, but released by another publisher, so I wasn't actually a fan of the translation that much. So I decided to pick up Viz's release of the series because the box set is a very economical way to buy it. You can get it fairly cheap, and considering it's 18 volumes, it's definitely worth your money and time. It's a great series, very funny. It's probably considered one of the classics of shoujo. It's definitely one of Shoujo Beat's more popular series. Both the anime and the manga are very, very funny, very clever, and has a great cast of characters. I'm 15, 16, 17, and 18. The anime itself goes up to volume 9, and the first half is very comedic. It's much more focused on the comedy rather than the romance. The second half is also very comedic, but there is a lot more romantic developments in the series, so if you did ever want to kind of find out how the series ends, the manga will definitely tell you that. It's really great. Bisco Hattori is, she has a lot of fun with her characters, and I think she has a lot of heart in her stories. Notepad, so just as such. And it's a cute little extra, but not really, anything to write home about. Sorry for the pun there, but it's a good series, and if you were thinking about it, the manga box set is probably the best way to go about collecting the series. So, yes. And finally, the last the manga related thing I got this month is actually the complete box set of Full Metal Alchemist. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, but you already have Full Metal Alchemist. Why do you need this? Well, actually, that Full Metal Alchemist set that is on my shelves, shown off to the world, is again another English release done by Shang Yi. And whilst it's I think a better translation than Ouran and some of their other series were, it's still different from the Viz one. And in addition, that's actually not my manga, it's my sister's. So, she doesn't share very well. So I finally got around to picking up my own set, because Full Metal Alchemist is the sort of thing that I think everyone needs to read at some point in their life. It's probably one of the best written shonen of all time, and as well as being completed and quite easy to get through. Showing off covers, I'm sure people have seen these from the end of the time, but just Hiromu Arakawa's writing, her artwork, everything in the series is at the top of its game, and it deserves to be read and owned and everything else by everyone. There are very few people who dislike Fullmetal Alchemist, and whilst I must say that's their prerogative and I'm not one to judge anyone's tastes, I really, really do regard Fullmetal Alchemist as one of the best shonen of all time. Just the sorts of themes, genres, characters, tropes, everything that it covers is phenomenal, and it's really, really done much better than I think a lot of series, both past and current. It's still a classic to this day, and I think it's a great shame that I think not as many people have read the manga comparatively to watching the show. Although I will say the show is fantastic, I'm not knocking the show, but the manga is again a different experience from watching Fullmetal Alchemist 2003 and Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, because they all have different things they focus on, they all have their own pacing, and they all do things just a little bit differently, although of course Brotherhood is a more close adaptation of the source material. There's still things to enjoy and still things to be gained about reading the series comparatively to watching the series. Volume 22, 23, 24, 25, and of course 26, and finally 27. So the entire series in 27 volumes. The box set also came with the fifth and of course final light novel of the series that was released in English, The Ties That Bind. So now I have volumes 1, 2, and 5 of these light novels. I still need to get 3 and 4. But yes, that was Fullmetal Alchemist. I'm sure it needs no introduction for people who are already aware of the series. It's famous for a reason, and I'm glad to finally own my own copy, although it won't necessarily be out on the shelves. It'll be safely tucked away in another shelf or in another room, and I will be able to read it at my leisure. So this is everything, or pretty much everything I got manga-wise for the month, or the second half of August. I don't think I'll be getting nearly this much next month, or for next video. I really splurged on this part of the month because I had a little bit of extra money to spare. I got some stuff that I had been wanting to get for a very long time, and now I have it, so I can kind of check those off my list and don't have to worry about it. Again, I don't think I'll be getting anything nearly to this extent next month. This was over 60 volumes just for the typical manga releases, including BL stuff that it's close to 80 volumes, which is just a huge number for me. But I did get some good deals on them. I won some eBay stuff, I got some stuff secondhand, as well as, like I said, more economical box sets of series, as well as the most recent releases that I look forward to every month. But thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye till then.